Hello and welcome everybody to yet another episode of this podcast. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Glenn. Thanks for taking the time to be on, Glenn.
No worries, Tim. Glad to be on. I've got a rule where it's like you never say no to an interview, just because I've had so many business opportunities come through people like watching interviews or podcasts, like people want to work with you or like hire you. Happens a bunch from this kind of thing. So, like, as long as someone has like one episode and like at least one view on an episode, like I'll always do it. But you've been doing this for a while and it looks good. So
Yeah, it's like the ninth show, I think. And I have the same mindset. If one person watches this and can get some value from this, then I'm happy. They don't get a lot of views at this point. They might get eventually, but I'm just trying to make a small impact first before we move on to bigger things. So yeah, please go ahead and introduce yourself to anyone who doesn't know you. I'm assuming most people will know who you are, but maybe there's someone who still doesn't know you.
my name's Glenn, obviously. 30 years old, born and bred in the UK, from Wales specifically. I live in England at the moment, but my story. Where do I start? So you were saying you're 20, right? So you started way, way younger than me. I didn't start doing anything until. Well, I don't know if we're talking like just general side hustles and little things like that. Like it's probably since I was like 17, but doing like something or another. In university, I was doing this thing called like match betting. You'll have to Google that, but it's where you find like arbitrage opportunities between like bonuses that a bookmaker is offering and like the actual odds, and you just like can lock in guaranteed profits doing that. But they kind of caught on to that, and it's not as good now. But yeah, so I did that throughout university. What did I do then? Got a degree, got a master's degree in urban planning. So I don't know what you'd call that in Germany, but like you know what it is. It's where like I want to build 10 houses here. Like, what do I need to do to get permission? So I was doing that for a while, and it's just kind of like boring, really. And I've always had this like super entitled feeling of like, oh, I should be doing something cooler. So I think it was 2019 where I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to start another project this time when I was working at my first job after getting my master's. And I made a website around, like, I don't know if you've heard of like a niche site. Some people in the audience might have, but a niche site is like where you upload a bunch of SEO friendly blogs on like one topic. You put like affiliate links in there or whatever you want to do. So I did that with air quality products. So I think dehumidifiers mainly in the UK specific geo region. So I just had this little blog with 50 pages on it doing like, isn't it $600 a month? But at the time that felt like that was a crazy amount. Especially when you're making like less than 2K a month from your job. So that was sick. That was how I started, like really getting into the online side of business. Sold that. You rolled all the profits into just buying an engagement ring for my now wife and a few other things. A couple of nice trips. And then, so how did I actually end up? So like a lot of people, like you were just saying you came here because of Danco. Like I didn't come here because of Danco, but I came here because of probably like similar reasons. Like I just heard Elon was buying X. I was already writing at the time. I was like, oh, why can't I just like write my own stuff? So I started another blog called actually grindfreak.com. It was going to be all like about side hustles and stuff like that. That's why my email is at grindfreak and not at Glenn Wrights. More on why I haven't changed that later. But so I was like, oh, I'll use this Twitter thing to get traffic to the blog and speed things up a bit. So I had this like logo profile picture account with like a demon in a gear as the profile picture. And I just started like posting platitudes and stuff. But then, yeah, I just fell down that rabbit hole of Twitter. You know, where people are like, oh, one person business and like you can do 10K a month and all that. Not realizing at the time I was getting like hardcore biz opt into this like Twitter creator funnel. I didn't find that out till probably like 2 years later. But from there, I mean, I grew an account super quick, like 6 months, 10,000 followers ish, 6-7 months. Met some friends also from my home country, Dylan Ladd and Tatsuki Thomas. We were doing like some of the typical like growth coaching stuff at the time and whatever else. Then we started a cohort and just rolled it all into one. Growth Army in July 2023. That blew up. We did 80K gross in 4 days. So that was when I was like, all right, cool. I might actually be able to like 100% quit my job now. So I handed in my notice shortly after that, just because I was like, oh, this game is ridiculously easy. Like, if this is how easy it's going to be, like, I'm going to be a millionaire in like 2 years. It didn't work out like that. It never does. But fast forward probably like a year or so, like we kept releasing the same thing. Like you see a lot of creators like relaunching these same like cohorts and communities over and over again. My suspicion is that a lot of them are actually like performing worse and worse each time they launch them. That's what's happening to us. And we just kind of wanted different stuff, so we packed it all in and then went on our business, started going heavy into direct response marketing, learning like the real skills behind making money online, especially helping other people make money. Email in particular for me was a big thing, so I kind of zoomed in on, instead of being like this creator guy like helps other creators, I was like, I'm sick of this now. I want to like hone in on one skill, so I just picked email because the guys like Eddie Kwan, guys like Ben Settle, I just liked it. I thought it was cool, so I was like, all right, cool. I'll focus on email, get really good at email first, then like reset my foundations, and then get good at other stuff. So I started with email. Started sending a daily email. Been doing that for a while. I think 18 months now. It's crazy how fast time
Nice.
goes.
Wow.
And yeah, then we're kind of at where we are today. So
Okay, a lot of things to unpack there.
yeah, a little
bit long. But let's maybe talk about the email side of things first, as I think a lot of people listening to this are going to be interested. They've heard about the 1 email per day business, how profitable it's supposed to be, how fun it's supposed to be. First off, like, why should people even build an email business? And then secondly, what are the biggest mistakes people make when building their email business?
Yeah, I mean, why should you build an email business? Well, for a start, like if you don't want to, probably shouldn't. But if you do want to, like the benefit of an email business, like I would just compare it to someone who doesn't really know much about email. Let's say they have like, I don't know, 20K on socials and they sell a course or whatever. If they don't send emails, they basically have to like spam sales. Like they have to like spam sales all over their social media, which is not something I think is very good, because like socials is where you make noise and then email is where you do the selling. Like you don't want to be selling all over social media. Like it's fine to do it occasionally, but if you're constantly just spamming, like if people click your profile and the first thing you see is like a paid course link, like right under your post, like I don't know, it's kind of like a lot of people would think it was like a grifty, or like I've done that as well. Like it does work, but it's a lot less personal. It's harder to get sales. It's harder to get those big ticket sales. But if you have the email side of things, you're basically giving like a special area for all of your like biggest supporters, I don't want to say fans, I hate that word, but like people who enjoy your stuff the most are getting put in a separate room, and then you can just reach out to those guys whenever you want, and they're all going to see it. Whereas like, I don't know, I have 15K followers, like the algo doesn't love me anymore. But if I tweet, like, I don't know, 1,000 people see it maybe. But I have 15,000 followers, so what about the other 14K? Whereas email, if I have, say, 2,500 people on my list, I send an email, like, they all get that email. Like, they don't all read it, obviously, but, like, they can all see it in their inbox. So that's why I like email, just because you're building that, like, personal relationship with people over a long period of time. So I heard someone say, we're talking about daily money. He said, well, you post daily on social, so why would you send an email every day? And for a while I thought, that's a good point, actually. But really, like, no one goes on socials. Like, no one sees your post on socials every single day unless they're, like, super addicted to socials and they're on there all the time. Whereas email, like, I don't know, I check it when I first wake up. My favorite guys are in there. Like, I'll read those when I'm doing something. Like, you're kind of bypassing people having to log into the social app, because most people check their emails, like, constantly throughout the day. I don't know, it's kind of like a rambling explanation of why it's good, but
no, it totally makes sense. I mean, the part that I like about email marketing is that you can basically follow up indefinitely into the future, which makes it very easy to build a relationship, which has the benefit of being very profitable, but it also has the benefit of just being fun, because building a relationship with people that like you is just fun. I think a big reason for why this business model, let's say, is becoming more popular is just because it's enjoyable for writers. And a lot of people on here, they're writers, they enjoy writing.
yes.
And that's why you can leverage that, passion to make a very handsome salary off of that. Okay, let's talk about the biggest mistakes people make when building their email list. So what have you found in your clients or other people?
Oh yeah, this is like a case of where'd you start? So I think I talked about this in an email yesterday, but the first one is like what I would call snooze-letter syndrome, where like if you came to Twitter through the Dan Co route, you're probably going to be like, oh, so when I start an email list, I send a weekly newsletter. And because these people have signed up to my list, like this has to be so insanely value packed. This has to blow all my threads and YouTube videos out the water. This has to be like a fucking master's dissertation. And that's just a recipe for disaster because no one likes writing that. Like no one I've ever met is like, oh, I freaking love writing a 2,000 word newsletter about some stuff I don't really want to write about. Like no one wants to. No one wants to read it. But then because you hate it, like you don't send anything. So I was speaking with a guy. Well, I was working with a guy called Bjorn over on Threads, and he was in the same boat. He'd built up 700 subs just from like doing everything right, getting the views on his content, funneling people into the list. And then because he also is like, you know, a Dan Coe guy. Again, I'm not shitting Dan Coe, just people who come through that route are like big newsletter guys. And he hadn't sent anything because he was like basically too scared / like it was just such a mental block that he had to write this big newsletter that he just couldn't send anything. So that's why I call that snooze-letter syndrome. But then I showed him how I do it. Obviously, I call it email blitzkrieg just because I'm interested in World War II, and it's kind of like that battle strategy of like all the tanks just going straight across and then like piercing the line in like one location. It's kind of what email blitzkrieg is. Like you just send a bunch of emails. They're short, like 10, 15 minutes. They're super chatty, just a little story and then an offer. He started doing that because then it was like, oh, I can do that. Like a little 10-minute email. You know, he sent it. He got a bunch of unsubscribes as I told him he was going to get on that first email. But he also got like his first sales. And then he was like, oh, wow, this is just so much easier, so much better. And then that's been the case with a bunch of people I've worked with. Like, I think one of the biggest mistakes people do is their early emails are just too long. Like, I think if you're starting out, really good thing to do is to limit yourself to like 300 words, 250, 300, 350. I'm not saying you have to do that, but that helped me a lot because then it teaches you to get to the point quicker. Most people write too much. Very few people write too little. So it's good to like get a grip on that early on. Making an offer every single email. I mean, like I don't make an offer every single email, but if I'm not making an offer in that email, I'm like preparing for an offer that's coming. So you're always kind of like hinting at something. Always teasing. What's another thing people do? I think a lot of people are really sloppy with their subject lines. Like they just expect to get opened and they just put like some really stupid subject line. They don't spend enough time on those, definitely. Because people say like, oh, it's who sends it. It's not the subject line that matters. But it's like, yeah, but if I land in your inbox and it's like Danko, JK Molina, Ben Settle, Glenn, Eddie Kwan, someone else, like my subject line has to be better to get the open or I'm going to lose because they're not going to sit there and read every single email. Most people don't do that. So that's where the subject line is critical.
Let's
I spend
dig
a
deeper
lot of
into
time on
that. Do you
those.
have any tips for writing better subject lines?
Like a double chance effect. So it's good prefacing this is I am in no way, shape, or form a copywriting coach. Like I never have been. I never say to anyone, I am not a copywriting coach. But I know a little bit about subject lines and copy. I've interviewed a bunch of great copywriters, worked with some, been mentored by some. I mean the solid subject line formula that I would usually use is like benefit plus curiosity. So it's like a benefit, but it also makes them curious. But there's also like this kind of like brain fart thing where like when you've written the email, you're like, what's the first kind of thing that comes to mind? And like, sometimes I'll do like quite silly subject lines, but just because like that's what's going to stand out in the inbox. Like you look what everyone else has sent. If everyone else is doing like how to this, how to that, how to get this, how to get this, like you just do something funny or a bit weird, and that's going to stand out more then. But like you always want to kind of hint at what's in the present, but you don't want to tell them what's in it exactly. But you really want to open it. So I spoke to my friend, I don't know if you know Tom Benny about this, but he's an ex-Agora copywriter. And he said like subject lines is one of the hardest things to teach, one of the hardest things to learn. It's like just dark arts. A lot of it's like sixth sense. Like you've just sent a shit ton of emails with different subject lines and you kind of like learn it over time that way. I suppose the biggest tip is just to be a little bit different to what everyone else is doing. Like if you're really just starting out, you can keep it simple, you know, straight benefits and things like that. But when you get a little bit more advanced, like you want to try and play around with it a little bit more because most people just lazy with it. So it's not too difficult.
Okay, we brushed on
kind of stand out in the inbox.
Distinct or succinct writing, basically cutting down the word count. And this is something I'm horrible at. I recently wrote a sales page for a client and it was like 2,000 words when 500 words could have been enough for the same thing. So I want to get your advice on how to make your emails more snappy, entertaining, and just make them like bite-sized and not like super long newsletters as you
Yeah.
talked about. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, on sales pages quickly, it's worth touching that like long can be good. Like long works. Like you will see offers that it's like a $20 PDF to cold traffic, and the sales page is like 9,000 words long. So that's not uncommon. Like our first sales page for Growth Army was long, and it's funny because like if you don't get any hate on a sales page, it's going to flop probably. Like all the sales pages we had that sold the most got hate from people, and like not that many people saying, "Oh, that's an
Yeah.
amazing sale." Like the more people you have messaging you saying, "Oh, slick copy, bro," like looks awesome, like the less sales you're going to get. Like because most people were people were posting our sales page and copywriting groups saying like, "I don't get like how this worked, like it broke this rule and that rule," and it's like, yeah, but it's because you're a newbie and you wouldn't get it. Whereas like people who are like super, because we had a super advanced guy help us with it, that was why it was so good. Um, but yeah, anyway, that on long copy. So how do you keep your emails down? So like you can like I'm not saying you have to be like write like a robot and use really short sentences and really like write emails like threads. I hate when people do, like I hate when that happens. But I'm just saying I don't waste people's time. So don't go off on like stupid tangents or like something I like to do is read through the email and be like, does this line need to be there? Does like could I just delete this whole chunk? Like because it literally adds nothing. It doesn't like move them closer towards the sale. It doesn't give you anything for the reader. So it's all in the editing, really. I don't worry about editing when I'm writing it. Like I'll just write the whole email out and then go back and edit it. I'm always looking for stuff to delete. It's just like, does this do anything? Like, does this line add anything to this email? Does it, make them more curious? Does it make them want the product more? Does it like give some kind of proof? If it doesn't, then it's just like I'll do it a lot where I'll have two sentences in a row that are both trying to like hype up the curiosity, and I'll be like, oh, I only really need to do that in like one line, so I'll delete that. A lot of this does kind of come from like writing in university sort of helps a bit because you have to cut stuff down there and keep it like to a word count. So that's useful. And then writing SEO blogs helped me a lot as well because Google won't rank you if you're just like rambling all over the place. And there's a couple of really good books. There's one really good one, Strunk and White, The Elements of Style. It's only a short little book on how to really write with style, but that's where I learned like, deleting fluff and things like that. So I'd recommend people read that book. But it's just common sense and like reading a lot of emails as well. So like what looks good. And like if you're selling a profile review, for example, and you're using this story about someone who like never got their profile checked and lost a bunch of sales, you don't need to then like go on a big tangent. Like writing stories irrelevant to the offer is a big one. New people do. Like the offer will be, I don't know, like, your 3-month lead gen coaching or whatever. And they'll just use a story about like a grandma's lasagna or something. And it's like, you have to jump so far to join those together. Don't do that. Like keep the story relevant to the offer. And it's just so much easier because people are like, oh, I don't know how to tie in the story to the offer. It's like, yeah, because you're talking about like, I don't know, something that happened 10 years ago that's not
Yeah,
relevant. And
I've
then you're trying to like
definitely
desperately
been guilty
join
of
them.
that in
So
the
that's
past.
another
Okay,
thing to
let's
consider.
go from the actual writing of emails, which we're probably going to talk about more, but let's go to probably a bigger bottleneck for many people, which is just list growth, getting people onto their list to send emails to. So what advice would you give there?
Yeah,
So how do
it's a
you
big
grow
bottleneck.
your list, or how have you done that for clients, or just any advice you can think of?
So I don't use paid traffic. All my list has been grown organic, which is hard. Like I know a lot of people grow lists with ads, and it does seem like a nice tempting prospect to get those like $1-2 signups. But then I also seen a lot of people say the leads you get from paid. Obviously, there's so many caveats and different variables here, but are generally not quite as good. Just because like when someone joins your list from organic, they might have been reading your content for like a month beforehand, then they join, and it's like they're ready to join the list. Whereas if someone just sees, oh, get my like Uber mega money making PDF online, and they just download that, they get the PDF. Like they don't even, like, who's this guy still emailing me? They don't even know. I mean, you're a Twitter guy, I'm a Twitter guy, so that's like where That's why I've grown most
Hmm.
of my list. Like some little tricks you can do is you can swap lead magnets to people. You can write emails for each other. You can do auto DM giveaways, which yeah, they still work. Like for a while, I was saying they didn't work anymore, but apparently they do. I know a lot of guys crushing with those. If you got the right lead magnet, the right sequence. I mean, you need a good lead magnet. That's another thing. A lot of people will make one lead magnet and just stick with it for like a year when they haven't like tested it. Like they could change their lead magnet and triple the signups. They don't know. So that's a thing to consider. Like you can also write your email and then like write a teaser post for it. That's a really good way of growing your list. Very tiring because you're writing the daily email and then you're also writing like because the daily email is teasing to an offer and then you're writing a post that's teasing to the email. Like sometimes I've done that and got 20 subs in it, like 20 subs from one tweet, which is not too bad. But yeah, that's tiring, takes a lot of energy, but it's definitely a good way of growing your list. Another way is you can just literally message everyone who follows you and say, "Oh, hey, how you?" Just
Hmm.
start a genuine conversation, and then give them your lead magnet. You get a lot of good subs doing that. What else can you do? Obviously, auto plugs. People know about that. And yeah, repeat on different platforms. Really, like there's no hacked organic list growth. Like it's difficult. It takes a long time.
Okay, now
But if
that's
you start
that's some
today in
very
a
good
year, you could
advice.
have a couple thousand
Let's
subs.
talk about
So
the social media platforms because those are obviously the core of this. Um, you said I think I've heard you say that you are focusing more on Threads and LinkedIn for just generating leads or getting people onto your email list, and Twitter is just more of like a fun place to be. Which your posts are definitely jokes, but what is your strategy when it comes to Threads and LinkedIn or other platforms you might be generating leads at?
yeah, so I had good momentum on both those platforms, and then I just stopped posting because I just couldn't keep up the sheer volume of content. Like when you have to write tweets, threads, it takes way too long. So what I do now is I have like a document where I've got like 100, 200 pages of all mailed emails, all mailed tweets, and I've got some pretty sick AI prompts where I can then get my threads posts, my LinkedIn posts from that. And then with 5 minutes of editing, I've then got a LinkedIn post. So now I'm getting a LinkedIn post in 5 minutes instead of 30 minutes. And I'm
It's
getting a
pretty
week of
quick.
threads content in 20 minutes. And I just, upload it all, see what works, double down. Yeah, so I've kind of
Hmm.
not hacked, but like I've got all the content, like all the short form, all the fluff under control now.
Yeah.
And the key thing is I was just wasting my old stuff. Like I was posting once, gone forever. And like that's fine to do on Twitter sometimes, like because the longer I'm on Twitter, I don't know. I just find like I just don't like creator Twitter anymore. I got super bored of it, so bored of it. Couldn't stand it. Everyone posts like the same stuff and it's boring. Like it burned me out. So like I stopped posting that kind of stuff literally just because it burned me out, really. And it's just inauthentic. Like it's not real. But I can happily do that on other platforms because I don't care about those. I don't like know that many people on LinkedIn and Threads. But Twitter, I like to treat as more of like I don't know, group chat with the homies type thing. So yeah, that's why I said like, oh, I'm gonna
Hmm.
like how I'm gonna hack content on these other two platforms. Then I'll just tweet about what I'm doing on there
Yeah, it's
here.
fucking
And LinkedIn,
it's
the content
boring.
style, it's I'm sure you've seen it. It's just like
I
long
do
form
think LinkedIn is
stuff.
a great place for lead
Make sure the
general,
hook is
especially if
good.
you
Yeah,
want to
it's
have
boring,
like more
sucks, but
sophisticated leads. You talked about AI prompts there.
yeah.
Do you mind sharing one or two of those so
Yes.
we can steal them? Okay, more target.
I can't share the prompt because they're not like something that you just say. It's like I've got whole projects, like a bunch of stuff uploaded in there. But yeah, I've got stuff where like I uploaded my like I wrote a book, Email Blitzkrieg. Like I uploaded that, turned that into
That's
a
cool.
prompt. I've got
Yeah.
like a bunch of crazy stuff on there. Um, yeah, yeah, it's good. It saves me a hell of a lot of time. Like in the past, every time someone's been like, "Oh, bro, like check out, I can write content with AI." I've been like, "Yeah, okay," and I
So
try it and it's
essentially, you
garbage,
train
like
the
almost
AI
every time.
on
But
previous
like I've
content
yeah,
or
AI is pretty good
products,
now.
and
So
then okay, go from there. Very interesting. I might do that myself because writing content for like three platforms is not the easiest thing in the world. Yeah.
too much. No, it's not. And content's not like a direct
Yeah.
money making activity either. So unless you're like balling out, like you kind of wasting your time really. Like I used to find it fun, but I don't anymore. The only thing I enjoy about
Yeah.
content is just writing random tweets.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy like
Yeah,
writing
what
a
I've been trying to do
stupid
is just
LinkedIn post and
taking
whatever
my
else.
email ideas and trying to turn
Emails I
them into
like.
tweets. But even that is just it's so much time. Just getting like if you're doing that every single day, then it's like 1 or 2 hours every day just doing
Yeah,
that. Too much time.
yeah. That's that's a really good topic actually, because all of these guys' courses, like Justin Welch's and Dan Coe's and stuff, they're like, oh, so you write this newsletter and then you turn it into 10 pieces of content. But actually, if you write an email the way I write emails, like what I would say is the way you should write emails, you're basically like telling a little story and you're like teasing to a
Mm.
product. That doesn't translate well like into 10. You can't get 10 tweets from that because it's like a piece of copy in itself almost. It's not like a big newsletter where you speak about 10 different topics, because I would say like that's a terrible thing to do, is to write about
Yep.
several different big like each email should have like one core little idea behind it, not 10. Like, and these newsletters people write, I won't say Justin Welch just because his are actually like pretty short. They're just like long emails really. Like they go all over the place, like to here, to here, to here, and like yeah, you can get 10 tweets from that. You can get 5 YouTube scripts from that. But like if you're writing sales emails the right way, you might get a couple tweets
Yeah,
from them, but you can't repurpose them
that's
into
true.
like all your content for the week.
Speaking of ideas,
So I feel like that's a bit of a pipe
how
dream.
do you go about generating ideas for your emails? Because I've been sending daily emails this year, and some days it's just a battle when you can't think of anything, and then you're sitting like in front of your computer for 2 hours trying to write an email, but it doesn't really flow. I guess that's normal, but what are some ways you found to
Yes.
generate ideas and then execute on those?
Yeah. Like when I refer to daily email these days, what I kind of mean is like 4/5 days a week to 7 times a week. Like not every single day, because
Yep,
I think if you
totally.
if you haven't sent your email that day and you have no good ideas, it's probably better just to leave it than just send something for the sake of sending it. Because I used to do that. I had like a streak, but it became about the streak and about sending every day, not about like what was in the email. So it's definitely a fine line. Like if you're smart, you'll have a backlog
Yeah.
of 10, 20 days of emails. I don't do that. I have like one day ahead. That's it. Just the way I roll. I don't do stuff in advance. And if you've got no idea, it weighs on you hard, and it can cause a lot of stress actually. Especially if you need ideas for content too, it's nearly impossible. That's why with all this AI stuff now, all I have to do is worry about my email. That's it. So I'm thinking about that. And even then, like I get a lot of ideas from AI as well. Like I'll plug in my avatar, like I'll give them a bit of info about that, about what I sell. I'll be like, here's what they believe, here's what they want, here's what's stopping them getting there. And then I'll ask it to like flesh that out. So I want like 20 pains, 20 self-limiting beliefs, 20 desires. Then I can ask AI like, what keeps this client avatar awake at 5 a.m. staring at the ceiling, stuff like that. And it'll give you some like fucked up output where you're like, wow, damn, I felt that. That's real. Like it'll start, and then you can ask it like, put these in the client's own words, and it's
Mm,
little sick little quotes like, oh, I'm never going to make it, or like just like things like that like are real thoughts that like the market has had. But the key is knowing the market already, so you can sift through the output and be like, oh yeah,
mm,
that's good, this is good, that sucks. Because if you don't know the market and you're doing research with AI, um, it's not going to work because you don't.
yep.
It's like having an office assistant. Like, you have to already be good at the thing, and then the assistant can like help you a lot. So I use AI a lot for ideas, and then also I'll just get like usually like one interesting thing happens in a day. I find if I'm in all day on my computer, like it doesn't happen as much. But if I'm like out and about and stuff's happening, I'll get a good idea and I'll like make that like the crux of the email. But yeah, I've had to supplement my idea gen with AI, which is something else I'm going to put. So I'm turning my book into a course now, and I'm going to put like all this stuff in there as well, because like the book is great, like people loved it, but ultimately it's still a lot of manual work to have to. I know people will say like, oh, you're lazy, you
Mm,
can't think of one idea a day. It's like, yeah, I can, but
yeah.
also like I
No,
can also just
AI
like
has
make it way easier.
been there's
So
this
why
one
not?
prompt which I've used a lot is write me a journal entry from the perspective of ICP. It's so good when there's a lot of bullshit in there, to be fair, which is why, as you
Yes,
said, you have
that's
to
good.
know the market. But
Yeah,
just reading through that, there's these little sentences like it's so good, and you can turn those into sales arguments or just emails or posts,
yeah.
whatever. Um,
Yeah, there'll be little things like it'll
mm,
say like, "Oh, I'm just these other guys are working less hard than me, and they're getting more. They're getting ahead of me. Like this makes me feel like shit." You'll see stuff like that, and you're like, "That's a real
yeah.
market belief."
Speaking of email
And like I
Email
didn't have to think of it
Blitzkrieg.
because they were just giving it to me.
I'm
So, yeah.
going to use the German pronunciation. um, let's talk about info products,
Yeah, sounds
because
better.
I feel like the dream, at least for me, and I know for a lot of other creators, the dream is just to
Yeah,
sell info. Eventually, it might be a couple years down the line, but to make all of their income from info, where they don't have to invest any time into fulfillment or delivery. I know that client work is a necessary pre-step to
yeah.
that. You're building a track record. You're getting intel on the market and stuff. But eventually, that's, for me at least, that's the dream. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to build a quality info product that they can sell for years to come and make it very profitable, hopefully?
Yeah, this is a good topic because as a guy I've gone down the route. I've done
Yep.
like more cohorts than I can count at this point. Like delivery is difficult. It takes a lot of time, a lot of like the last cohort I did. I think I was doing it was only 2 group calls a week, but just knowing they were there and had to do them.
Same.
Like I'm the kind of guy if I wake up and I've got one call on my calendar, like it bothers me all day. Like that's why I'm happy to do this in the morning because I was like, oh, I wake up, I do the call in the morning, it's done. So I'm actually considering
Mm.
after this changing. I usually only take calls in the afternoon, but I might switch it to like the morning just so they're gone, and then I can do whatever. But like making a good info product, like it is the dream. I think people need to realize getting to the point where you can just send one email a day and just make enough salesman info to
Yep.
comfortably sustain
Yep.
yourself and not worry about the future. It takes a long time to get to that point and a hell of a lot of work, so much work, which I should probably make more light of more in my emails. In fairness, because like everyone wants to be sat on the beach in Bali with the Mac and they open it, they write an email and they get like 50 sales and they close the list. It's like doesn't really go like that. Like it could do. It's very difficult. Like I've had moments like that. And it feels amazing, but I've also had moments where like it doesn't go that well, and it is more difficult. Like making info products is it's worth spending a lot of time I think on them because what I've done in the past is you like make something that's like decent and then you sell it, and then you kind of like get bored of it, and then you make another thing that's kind of decent, you sell it, get bored of it, make another thing that's decent. Like what you want to do really is to spend a lot of time on like one solid product, but then you also need that thing on the back end. Like I've had a guy working with a guy at the minute, he's like crushing on the front end. Like he did 9K in December.
Mm.
Like he's doing great, but all of his stuff is like
Yep.
under $200. When I don't know if you've read the 80/20 rule or know about the 80/20, you probably do, but there's a book called 80/20 Sales and Marketing by Perry Marshall. That's really good. And it basically shows you how like 80/20 applies to everything, and 20% of your customers are going to give you 80% of your revenue. Like, even if it doesn't work out exactly like that, you need an offer to sell the people buying these little info products that's more expensive. Like the just easy one is like, I don't know, like a coaching, consulting, an inner circle type thing, or it could even be like done for you if you want to do that. But like, you need a thing to sell people after they buy the little thing, because that's where like if you had both those offers set up and you did like 20K in a month, let's say, like half of it or more would come from that back end offer sold to like 2 or 3 people. And like we've done this in the past, we've had like 50 people in a community, and it's like $100 a month, but then you get like 10 or 15K from like 3 people ascending to get more access on the back end. So like you have to remember that info products generally, like some people do rely, like look at all the people who only sell info with like no real back end, like all the guys are 200, 300, 400K followers, huge accounts. Like they can do that. They don't care. They make 60K a month from selling a $99 course. Fine. They don't need a back end. But like if you're the guy, like the average person with a few thousand on your list, like you need a solid back end offer. Almost more important than info itself. And like another thing on info products is people think like, all right, like the common one is I'm going to make this course and it's going to cover everything. It's going to be the best course ever. That's bad. Like you want to pick one outcome and just focus on that. And just think like in terms of pure self-interest, like what people like want, little tools. Like people love buying things to help them do a thing. That's why like when I sold a $200 ebook, like it was hard to sell. Like it sold well. I was very happy with it. But like a $200 ebook is just a harder thing to sell because it's like a book. Like you might not open it. It's not like it is a tool, but it like kind of isn't. It's a book. Whereas if you're selling like a course, it's like, at the end of the course, if you follow step 1, step 2, step 3, you'll be able to like get this cool thing. So yeah, just focus on like a
Mm.
self-interested outcome.
Only one
Like build tools for
problem, one
people basically is what
solution,
I'd say for info
and make
products.
it make it as good as possible. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, because no one buys like the all-in-one. It's just so hard to sell it because like what you focus on, you're like pulled in all directions, and like just knowing your market helps a lot as well. Always pre-launch as well. Another good thing is like never build a course without selling it first. For the love of God, do not do that. It's so bad. Like I've seen people spend like 10K developing a product and they'll make like 2K in sales. And because they never tested demand or
Yeah,
anything, like everything I've ever sold, I sell it first. Like I sold my book before I wrote it just to test. Like, are people going to want this? And a bunch of people bought the pre-order. I was like, right, green flag, let's make the book. But if I got
interesting.
no
Yeah, how
sales,
do
like
you
I
go
wouldn't have
about
made it, or I
running
would have repitched
campaigns
it
or
again in a month
validating
with like a new
offers?
angle. Just by doing a pre-sale usually. So what I will do, like what I'm doing at the minute, because I'm launching a course, I'm doing like a pre-sale this week where I'm just like talking about it a little bit, like social proof, kind of educating people as to like why the way I do things is the best way. So then people are like, all right, something's coming, like email day sounds cool, and then the next week I will probably do like an actual pre-launch. Where I'll give like a 3-day window where if people want this thing, then they can get it now at half price plus these other bonuses, but like they're not going to get it till it's finished. And then the week after that, I will just release the full thing. Like, hopefully that's how it goes. Like, it might take a bit longer than that, uh, but yeah, you just put a super simple like Thrivecart page together, a little landing page. Here's what you get. You want to give people a discount plus extra stuff that people aren't going to get when they buy the full thing. But don't do the discount too much. Like if you do a 90% discount on pre-order, like that might skew it a little bit because people are just because it's crazy cheap. But like 50% off, a few
Mm,
extra bonuses. If people are
interesting.
buying that,
Do you
then
have any
yeah, there's
strategy
demand there.
for the
You can tell.
campaign itself? Because I have like there's a bunch of different ways to run campaigns. Some people just say write your daily emails as usual, put like a plug at the end. Some people say like take the limiting beliefs and work them off one by one. Other people have an entirely different approach. What's your approach there?
Yeah, I would definitely say don't just write your regular daily email and change the plug. I don't like that. I used to do that, and I don't think it's very good anymore because I've just done it enough times. Especially like the worst thing you can do is just drop an offer on people's heads without giving any build up. Awful. Like even if the product is good, the landing page is good. It's just not going to do well because people didn't know it was coming. You've got like no tension in the rubber band, so you want to like pull the tension back first. And the longer I'm in it now I do consider that you should plan out like the 3 weeks of emails leading up to it and have put some thought into it. Like in the book, there's like 15 different types of email. You've got like social proof, stories, horror stories, Q&As, stuff like that. Like you want to plan different angles of attack for each email leading up. So I'll have like right now I've got 3 weeks of like kind of scheduled emails. I'll just see if I can find it in the background, but um, just trying to make sure I hit like as many angles as possible. So in my planner here, I've got so this week we did like a soft announcement with some value on Monday. Tuesday was social proof and some education. Wednesday was like a main objection. Was it Wednesday today? Yeah, I did that yesterday. And today's gonna be like behind the scenes, a bit of intrigue. Friday, um, just kind of making people aware of the problem, agitating a
Mm,
bit. Saturday, future pacing and some FOMO. So I'm kind of like trying to hit all these different angles in the build up. I've never done that before. Usually, well, I've kind of done that and it's always worked better. But now I'm
yeah.
like really going at it, making sure like you don't want multiple emails talking about like the same thing, like overlapping. Like hit as many objections, self-limiting beliefs as possible. So it's like you're maximizing your chance of sales.
Okay, interesting.
But
So
getting that
3 weeks in
tension
advance.
before a launch is the
Okay.
most important thing.
Yeah.
It can, yeah, I've done 5 or 6 weeks in advance. Like I think at least a week. 2 weeks is good. Like you could sell twice a month and do that might outperform selling daily for you. You just don't know. If you did like
Interesting.
2 launches
Okay.
a month where you're
I
building
might have to
tension for
change my
10 days for
strategy
each one.
then. I'm working. Yeah, definitely. Always testing always is always
You have to you have to test
the
it.
ultimate decider. But I'm working on a campaign right now, and I have like 5 emails scheduled, pre-scheduled, or planned. So I might have to work on that a little bit. But yeah, okay, very
It's good.
interesting. Glenn, thanks for your insights. I just want to ask you, what are your plans for the future? You talked about your course. What's that all about? Tell people about it.
Yeah, so the course is like I've already sold Email Blitzkrieg as a book, which is it's just my entire way of thinking and doing emails, and I'm just going to turn that into a course because a lot of people in my again I've noticed this from market research. Like books are cool, but people in my market really enjoy courses, so I figured like why not just turn it into a course? A little bit more outcome based, a bit more hand holding, and then there's been some like revelations since I wrote the book, like the AI stuff and some other stuff that I want to put in there. So people are getting like a toolbox versus a book. Um, it's a lot easier to sell a toolbox than a book, especially when it's like $200.
Mm,
But
totally.
yeah, that was when I knew I'd built a solid brand. Is when I sold a $200 book,
That's the dream.
like an ebook as well. So yeah, but there's some good stuff in there. Like I've got 5 interviews in there with some top copywriters, and like just those interviews, in my opinion, were worth the cost of the book. But plans for the future is just keep growing the list. We didn't talk about client work too much, but yeah, I got some of that going on in the background too. Like write emails for people, and also, by the way, I don't think you like have to necessarily write emails for like big brands and stuff to be like taken seriously. I think the clientless copywriter is quite a cool thing. Obviously, if you're going to like sell copywriting, then yeah, you should probably have clients because it'd be kind of weird otherwise. But if you're like, yeah, you don't like always have to have written emails for other people. It helps, but whatever. There's other ways of getting social proof. And yeah, just keep growing the list, grow the platforms again because that's been kind of slacking in 2024. 6 week
Where are you
honeymoon
headed?
coming up in 10th of February, I leave. So yeah, it's good to have. We're going to where are we going?
Nice. I'm
Thailand,
jealous.
Australia, in Philippines, Bali. So going everywhere. But like, luckily, I have this job now.
Nice.
It's gonna be sick.
Yeah, everyone.
But
If
yeah,
you
it helps
haven't
to have
already,
this kind of
please
job.
check out Glenn's list and check out his course once it launches. It launches. And yeah, you're amazing, Glenn. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to hop on this. Cool.
No worries, my pleasure. It's been good.